Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we're going to break down a really powerful concept from Islamic finance that's all about delegation and, well, trust. It's called Wakalah. I mean, seriously, who hasn't wished they could be in two places at once, right? But the reality is, we're all limited by time, by where we are, and sometimes by what we know. If we had to do absolutely everything ourselves, our economy would just stop. And that's where this fundamental need comes in. The ability to have someone else act on our behalf. And here's the solution: Wakalah. It's not some new idea. It's a centuries-old contract. Think of it as the legal framework that lets one person represent another. It's what makes our complex, modern world of commerce not just possible, but also efficient and built on a foundation of trust. So, how does this all work in the real world? Let's take a look at the basic relationship that's at the heart of it all. Okay, what's so cool about this is just how simple it is at its core. You've got a principal, let's call them person A, who gives authority to an agent, person B, to act for them. The agent does a job and, usually gets paid a commission. This simple little relationship, it's the engine behind everything from buying a house to managing huge investment funds. But the goal here isn't just about making life more convenient. It's about tearing down those barriers of distance and time and being able to tap into someone else's expert skills. At a deeper level, the Shari'ah aim is to build an economic system that's both efficient and trustworthy. And that principle is absolutely essential in modern finance, like in the Malaysian takaful or Islamic insurance industry. So, how do you actually build one of these contracts? Well, just like any strong building, a Wakalah contract doesn't just appear out of thin air. It has to rest on a really solid and well-defined foundation. You can think of these as the absolute non-negotiables. You simply cannot have a valid, enforceable deal unless all four of these key pieces are locked in place. And this slide, it lays out the blueprint perfectly. First, you need a competent principal and a trustworthy agent. Simple enough. Next, the task itself, the subject matter, has to be super specific, known to everyone, and of course it has to be legal. And finally, you need a clear offer and acceptance. No fuzzy language, no ambiguity, just crystal clear consent from both sides. But here's the thing, not all agency relationships look the same. The Wakalah contract is actually incredibly flexible. You can really tailor it to fit exactly what the principal needs. So on one hand, you can have a really specific one-time job. That's a particular agency. Sell this one car for me and that's it, job done. Or on the complete other end of the spectrum, you can grant really broad powers with a general agency. That's kind of like appointing a director to run all of your business affairs. This table gives us a fantastic snapshot of all the different levels of control, and it goes beyond just general or particular. The principal can also create a restricted agency, where they set firm limits like, don't sell for less than this price. Or they can make it absolute, where the agent has a lot of freedom, but they still have to act according to standard business practices. Okay, so let's move from the theory to the real world. How do these rules actually protect people when it comes to the most common transactions out there? Buying and selling stuff. All right, here's a classic setup. Principal A hires agent B to sell their property to some buyer, C. Seems totally straightforward, right? But to keep things fair, Islamic law builds in a really critical safeguard here to protect the principal. And this is the key point right here. An agent's number one duty is to get the best possible deal for the person who hired them. Now, if the agent just buys the property for themselves, their personal interest, which is to get a low price, is in direct conflict with the principal's interest, which is to get a high price. So that's a big no-no. And guess what? This same powerful, ethical logic applies when an agent is hired to buy something. So in this picture, agent B is working for buyer A to purchase something from seller C. So, to prevent any kind of self-dealing, the agent is not allowed to sell their own property to the principal they're supposed to be representing. And why is that? Well, because it creates a huge temptation to maybe hide a few defects or not push for the lowest possible price. This rule makes sure the whole deal is based on trust and transparency, not on the agent's personal financial gain. All right, let's zoom in on some of the fine print. How does Wakalah stack up against other kinds of contracts? And maybe just as important, how does the whole relationship come to an end? One thing people often get confused about is the difference between agency and regular employment, or ijara. This table clears it right up. An agent is independent, gets paid on performance, and actually represents the principal. An employee, on the other hand, is controlled, gets a salary, and doesn't legally represent their boss. And a really key difference is that agency is generally non-binding. So how does the agency end? Well, because it's built on trust, it's usually pretty easy to dissolve. It can end when the job is done, mission accomplished. It can end if the item in question gets destroyed. It ends if one of the parties passes away, or simply because it's non-binding if either the principal or the agent just decides to walk away. Okay, you have now seen the fundamentals of Wakalah, from its 4 pillars all the way to its ethical rules. So, think you've got a handle on it?
Here's your chance to test your understanding. Let's kick it off with question 1. And hey, don't forget to drop your answers down in the comments section.
All right, question 1. Think back to that foundation of the contract we talked about. Which one of these is not considered an absolutely essential pillar for the agreement to even be valid? Okay, question 2. This one is all about the ethics that are baked right into the system. What is the core principle that this super important rule is designed to protect? And for the final question, how does the fundamental nature of a Wakalah agreement differ from your standard employment contract? Let us know what you think for all 3 down in the comments. Thanks so much for watching.